There is a lot of talk, it seems, recently about the simulation hypothesis, this idea that Nick Bostrom came up with, which said, in all probability, we're in a simulation. The reason is that given how far we've come in 50 years of computing, imagine how far we'll come in 5,000 years of computing, and thus essentially we'll be able to simulate this. And given the size of the universe, it's much more likely that we're in a simulated universe than the real universe, than the prime universe. I believe there are two problems with thinking that we're in a digital simulation. And the first problem is that it means that you need to accept that all of your fears, all of your loves and hates and excitements and depressions, that all of those can be reduced to zeros and ones. If you can imagine a trillion zeros and ones above you in the sky, and you look up and you say, could that contain my love for artichokes? Could that contain my fear of wolves? I have neither of those, but point made. And I think the answer is just, it's absurd to think that anything like that could be represented in any configuration or any amount of zeros and ones. And the second argument against it, and I think it's an important distinction, although it might seem similar, is that the very being, as in being, that experiences, that witnesses these emotions, love, fear, etc., joy and cheer, that experiences those, the consciousness could also be represented in zeros and ones. And that's, I can kind of, I'm not sure I can imagine a world in the first case where emotions and sentience and experience is represented in zeros and ones. But I certainly can't imagine, it seems absurd to think that actual consciousness itself, as distinct from experience, could be registered in and represented in zeros and ones. So I think if you do think we're living in a simulation, those are two things you have to overcome to make your position not absurd. But I could be wrong.